Going on, everybody? Oh, let me unmute my mic here. What is going on, everybody? It is Tuesday night here on the OBR streaming network, and you're tuned into Garage Beers Live here. As every Tuesday night, the OBR just kind of lets us come on and talk about whatever we want. It's kind of a OBR after hours type situation. As you all know, the OBR is your one-stop shop for the best Browns coverage anywhere. And it's training camp, and they're in it now. They're in the mix. This is the Super Bowl for them right now, as we're getting closer and closer to Browns season. But we thank them. We thank them so much for allowing us to come on here and just talk about everything Ohio sports here on Garage Beers. Like I said, little Garage Beers after dark, and as you can see, it's a little different setup tonight, as I'm going to be hosting. I'm at Garage Beers, Chad, and joining me is an old broadcast partner of mine, a guy I used to work with. I used to do, as you know, Mike and I used to do high school football games, we still do high school football games out there in Lorain County on AM 30 WEOL, and this man did the same thing. As I'd like to welcome in my old friend Matt Douglas. Matt, welcome into the Garage Beers podcast. You're my co-host for the night.
I appreciate it, Chad, man. It's great to be back on the air. It's been many moons, I feel, since you and I have worked together over there at AM 930 doing those high school football games. They were a blast, and when you gave me an opportunity to come back on the air with you, man, I was more than happy to jump on here and do what I could for you, buddy.
Yeah, thanks, man. Now we got, as we're waiting on our special guest, as we have got a huge special guest tonight, and that's going to be Blue Jackets President of Hockey Operations and General Manager Don Waddell is going to be joining us here in just a few moments. Like I said, you notice it's a little bit of a different setup tonight. Usually, I've got Mike, I've got Joey with me. Well, Mike decided to go fall asleep at the Hozier concert tonight, as Hozier's music just puts me to sleep. Right?
Not a Hozier fan, huh?
Nah, not a Hozier fan, right?
Where's that at? Is he here in Cleveland, or is he on the road?
He's in Blossom. He's at
That's
Blossom.
What I'd heard rumors of this. Are they still doing this with all the storminess going on?
I guess they delayed the show, and Mike and his wife Katie, his lovely wife Katie, are just sitting there waiting for the show to start.
True Hozier fans.
Yeah, true Hozier fan. Well, she is. I think he is
That's
going
good.
along with it and maybe just drinking a couple.
Well, then he's getting some good grounding points. Way to be, Mike.
But yeah, and then on the other side, Joey, I don't know what Joey's doing. He deals with international clients all the time, so he might be on some sort of caper, some sort of heist right now. I don't know what he's doing, but Joey's just doing his thing. But Matt, what how's life been, man? What have you been up to,
man? What hasn't been happening? 3 kids now. I don't even know if I had any the last time you and I worked together. It's been great, though, man. It's been fun. I've dropped back from the broadcasting thing quite a bit here recently. I've just become a fan of sports, I think, again. And it's so funny because you point out how we used to call high school football games. And I kind of thought when I stopped broadcasting games, I'd stop looking at newspapers and stop following what's happening. That hasn't been the case at all. I'm still grabbing the papers on Saturday morning, looking up who's leading the LC8, all the good stuff, SWC, what's happening here and there. So I've become a bigger fan, I think, now that I'm not as involved with it. But I'm still looking forward to tonight for sure, talking a little hockey.
Yeah, I mean, you're just dusting off the old broadcasting chops,
For
man.
sure.
I mean, did you think you lost it? You would lose it at all? Were you nervous at all?
Please, you don't lose it. It's like riding a bike. Once you got it, you've got it, isn't it? No, sure. A little nervous. Been a while. Usually there wasn't a camera on me. That's why I chose the radio path. I was joking. My new job, they did a phone interview, and I was hired as the looks. Then when I got there, they realized, yeah, there you go. You got it. But, no, it's great to be back. I enjoy doing this stuff. It's great talking sports. There's obviously lots going on at this point of the year. The Olympics are going on. We've got Browns football getting ready to kick off on Saturday with the preseason. Talking a little hockey is spring, but preseason for the Blue Jackets is going to start here in a month. So exciting times ahead for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. As we see our special guest is going to be here in just a moment. As we are, I'm waiting for him to pop up on the screen here. I know he's probably waiting here but I'm waiting for him to pop up. Why don't we do our Garage Beers of the Week segment real quick? And Matt, what are you drinking tonight?
I'm going plain and simple, nothing too crazy. I went with the Great Lakes Elliott Ness. What better way to honor a man who fought against prohibition and fought for prohibition, I guess, on the other side of things. Got old Al Capone, had a movie made after him, The Untouchables. So went with the Great Lakes Elliott Ness, an amber lager. Nothing too fancy for me. I'm a pretty low-down, low-key guy. So just went with the Great Lakes lager, the Elliott Ness, and I love the image of him right there doing his little thing as he's trying to catch the bad guys.
Beautiful, beautiful. And I'm going with Big Oyster Brewery here in Delaware, my favorite vacation spot. It's the Noir et Bleu. It's a Belgian triple, and it's 9%, and I can't even describe to you how tasty it is, and it's so delicious. Now, like I said, it looks like I might be having a little bit of a technical difficulty. I'm looking to see as our special guest is waiting in the wings, but I need a spot to pop him up here. So I will have Don just hold on a second. I will have you on in just a second. I apologize for the technical difficulty, but Matt, speaking of the Jackets, you are a huge Jackets fan going back to your intern days with them. Why don't you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, started, obviously big fan. Somehow my parents are both from Ohio. I grew up kind of here and there and everywhere, but grew up a Blue Jackets fan, probably more so because of my brother. Got into the media thing down in Columbus. Got to intern with the radio group at the time, George Matthews, Bob McGilligan were the radio play-by-play guys. Spent a lot of time hanging out with them under the leadership of Russ Mullahan. A lot of tutelage from him as I was able to kind of cut my chops with those guys, getting down in the locker room, talking to some of the players. Unfortunately, it wasn't one of the greatest seasons. It was that 2010? Has it been that long since I've done it? 2010 season where things didn't necessarily go as well as one would have hoped, but there, like any season, were some shining moments. They had a game against the St. Louis Blues in which they scored 8 goals. I remember that one pretty fondly. And then they also had another game against the St. Louis Blues in which I got to hone my radio chops, go down, interview the players after the game, and unfortunately for me, on that one, we lost the game or the Blue Jackets rather lost the game by a score of 8-2 or 8-3 that night. So it was a trying time trying to figure out what questions to ask the guys, but a good time certainly in Columbus, learning from some of the best in the game. I think anyone who's a broadcaster can appreciate George Matthews and the things he used to do. He was one of those guys who just knew everybody and could talk to anybody as though he knew them for years. So it was a lot of fun getting in there with the Blue Jackets. And then obviously did some off-ice stuff with them, some game op stuff with them after my internship, and obviously have followed them ever since.
Yeah, and and you're looking at this team now. What are your thoughts on the last couple of seasons?
Well, obviously, the last couple of seasons, I don't think necessarily went the way Blue Jackets fans would want them. They showed some hope there right after Tortorella left, and 2001, I believe, that 22-23 season under Brad Larson. It looked like they were going to have their struggles, their growing pains, but it looked like they were going to get back into things pretty quick, and then injuries and other mishaps obviously led to the last 2 seasons going the way they did for the Columbus Blue Jackets. But they're young. And when you look around the NHL now, it seems like youth has really led the way for a lot of these teams having success. The Blue Jackets seem to have the recipe there. You just got to mix it up and make the cake.
All right, there he is. Now I see him popped up there. So all is well. Again, I apologize for the technical difficulties, but folks, huge guest on the show tonight, and I apologize for the delay once again. But this man. He's born up in Detroit. He's played Division I college hockey. You can document his hockey career all the way back to 1976, and I hope I don't make him feel old, but this introduction deserves it, Matt. He was a Division I college hockey player up in Northern Michigan. He was a 7th-round pick by the LA Kings in the 1978 NHL draft. He spent 3 years with that organization and played better parts of 9 seasons as a pro, mostly in the IHL. He also tried out for the Miracle on Ice team, and I'm sure we'll get to that as well. He was a head coach for the San Diego Gulls, an interim coach for the Thrashers down in Atlanta. I don't know if you remember him or remember them. and he basically served in just about every executive role that you can think of, from the IHL to the Olympics to USA Hockey to the NHL. You would think that this man would be exhausted at this point in his career, Matt. But luckily, he has brought his talents here to Columbus as the president of hockey operations and general manager. So he brings all that experience. Please welcome into the Garage Beers podcast, Don Waddell. Don, welcome on to the show. I apologize for your wait. I hope you're not mad at me.
Not your fault, Chad. We're going to blame my PR guy for putting me on the team. So you're off the hook. So I apologize for being tardy. I don't like to be tardy for anything. And so now we're here and we'll have some fun.
Listen, you're not tardy at all. Are you? Like, I know you're a 5 a.m. guy, so this must have been a long day for you. So are we keeping you from something?
No, not this time of year. It's I love working out of the office, and many nights I'm here until 9:30, 10 o'clock. So it's just a normal day for me, and I'm happy to be able to join you guys at this hour.
Well, we're happy to have you here, Don. Now, we'll get to all things Blue Jackets here in a few minutes, but as we like to do here on the Garage Beers podcast, we like to, every first-time guest, we like to just get to know you a little bit. So, Detroit, Michigan native, born and raised there. What was it like growing up in Detroit? And what was do you remember that first moment that you kind of knew that hockey was what you wanted to do with your life?
Yeah, I was very fortunate. Had three older brothers that all played hockey. So started skating at a young age of 2. By the time I was 5, I was playing organized hockey, and was again very lucky to have people to look up to. But I've been very fortunate, and I grew up right in the city, and Ted Lindsay and Gordie Howe and all those guys were all my heroes when I was growing up. So I had a lot of good people to follow and try to be in their footsteps. But I've been very fortunate along the way.
Don, you mentioned you had a lot of guys to follow. Was there anyone you tried to model your game after while you were playing, or did you just do your own thing?
Yeah, my era was Bobby Orr. I was a smaller defenseman. I was like I like to say, I was a lover, not a fighter. So I went for the points, and that's how I made my career and survived for a few years. And so he was a player that I idolized because of the position and how he played the game.
It's a good person to idolize.
Yeah, yeah, I'd say so. Now, you went on to play, like we said, Division I college hockey at Northern Michigan. You look back at your collegiate days. I mean, you see it so many times, from back then to nowadays. What do you remember? When you look back on those years up at Northern Michigan, what sticks out to you?
Well, my freshman year of 1976, it was the first year Northern had Division I hockey. I can remember the first series we played St. Louis, the Billikens, and we lost the first game 5-0. We lost the second game 5-1. I scored with about 5 minutes left in the game, and you thought we won the Stanley Cup. We scored a goal. So great memories. We built that team. We started off freshman. Time my senior year, 4 years later, we lost in the NCAA finals to North Dakota. So it was great. Great 4 years there, coached by Rick Comley with a lot of great players, and memories that I'll never forget.
For those who don't know, Northern Michigan is located in Marquette, Michigan, up in the Upper Peninsula. What's it like up there? Were you guys kind of the big ticket in town? Did you get some fans going?
Yeah, we did. We drew very well. But remember, when we started hockey there was 2 guys one running a football team, Steve Mariucci, and one running the basketball team was Tom Izzo. So we were kind of second fiddle or third fiddle, but those guys lasted a year, and then they graduated. And so we became the big men on campus, so to speak. But great times at Northern. And I tell everybody, I went there, had to go to school, play hockey, and I always ask people, do you know what the N stands for? And my expression, it stands for knowledge.
Yeah. Okay.
Good.
Now, like I said, 7th round pick of the LA Kings in the 1978 NHL draft. I always love to hear these stories because it feels like everybody's draft story is just kind of has their own little unique twist, unique story to it. When did the draft become a reality for you? What was it? Did you find out like a day later, like a lot of the guys back before, the internet existed, cell phones existed. How did your draft story go?
But we weren't real familiar. It was 1978. We knew the draft was happening. And Tom Laidlaw, who went on and had a great career in LA, and the Rangers was my defense partner there for 4 years at Northern. And we both had the same agent at that time, or representation, I guess, instead of agent. But we both found out the next day. We didn't find out the day of the draft. We found out the next day, and just finished our sophomore years, and we both stayed for our junior and senior years, and we turned pro at the same time.
Pretty cool. Did you have aspirations? Obviously, you did, the success you had at Northern Michigan of playing professionally, and when you got that call the next day that you were indeed drafted by the Los Angeles Kings, pretty exciting moment, I'd have to assume.
Yeah, no, you dream about playing in the NHL, and I was. I think I was fortunate because I got to play one game in January of 1981. A lot of guys that get drafted don't ever get to play a game, so.
Sure.
I felt like, I was going to get that opportunity. And, I look back, I'm so lucky. I had that chance to play pro hockey, went to Europe for a couple of years, and then had the opportunity to get into coaching and management. And, I wouldn't trade it, certainly like to have a long NHL career, but how my steps have gone throughout time, I'm very pleased to be here at this point.
Did you get any ice time that game?
I'm sorry?
Did you get any ice time in the game?
Well, the first shift I got scored on because we were playing the Rangers, and I was a great defenseman. Ron Greshner was playing left wing. He came down on a one-on-one on me, and big Jerry Korab, they called him King Kong, came over and threw a hip check, but he missed Greshner and hit me, and I fell to the ice and went in the top shelf on Mary Lassard. So 30 seconds in the game, I was -1, and fortunately for our team, we only had 5 defensemen, so the coach, Bob Berry, didn't have a choice but to keep throwing me back out there.
Right. Makes for a great story, at least, right, Don?
Yeah,
you mentioned that you had that progression of playing. You played some years in the IHL, in the minor leagues, and then you go on to coach again in the IHL out in San Diego and some other cities as well. Did you always think that was going to be the natural progression for you, or were you not quite sure where to go?
I knew about 3 years in my career that I wasn't going to be a regular NHL player, and so I started thinking about coaching and managing and paying attention to what was going on. I was still a young person, and when I got offered in 1988, I guess I got offered. I was 27 years old, 28 years old, and got offered the coach GM job in Flint in the IHL. Accepted it. I was way in over my head. I wasn't ready for it, but survived that year, and then stayed there one more year as a GM. We were a Rangers farm team, and then went to San Diego in 1990. So I knew probably 3 or 4 years into my career as a player that this is what I wanted to do: get into coaching and get into management.
Now, I want to take it back for just one more second, then we'll move forward, because I read that you tried out for that 1980 Olympic team. What was that experience like?
Well, it was outstanding. I got to play, I think, 19 or 20 games that year, including the famous trip to Europe where we skated all night one night. It was, again, something that I'll never forget. I got hurt in the pre-Olympic tournament down in Lake Placid, and unfortunately couldn't stay with the Olympic team. But, I'm so happy for those guys. I know what they went through. A lot of them are still very good friends of mine. And if you just be a part of it, to play part of the season with them, was a true honor for sure.
Now Rob McClanahan has been a guest previously on this show here, Don, and he told us a lot of great Herb stories. Do you have any that you can at least you can share?
Well, probably the one is the Christmas. We all drew names. Okay.
Okay.
Silent Santa. Well, guess who pulls Herb Brooks? And so we go out, and everybody got their gifts. I had bad acne. Somebody got me some acne cream, and so I bought a whip, and then we made a signed Ayatollah, and I had some help with that. So the whip was my idea. So we go to our Christmas party, and everybody opens their gifts. Everybody's having fun, and Herb gets to his. He opens up. he didn't think it was so funny.
I was gonna say that's a gutsy move. Was there a little bit of nervousness as he's unwrapping that?
Well, yeah, but it's supposed to be secret. You know?
Yeah.
Yeah,
What's
right.
going on.
Good point.
He sent us all to our rooms. I wasn't anymore. I was my roommate. I'm 3 minutes in the room, and Craig Patrick, the assistant coach, calls me and says, "Don, Herb wants to see you."
Oh God.
It didn't take long for somebody to squeal me out, that's for sure. And yeah, I'll never forget that lecture I got from Herb. That's for sure.
Oh,
Was
that's
the
crazy.
was the again true like true like they played it in the movie? Did you guys go again? Like was that true?
For the most part, the movie was great. Actually, I always
Yeah,
say it's a movie, so they're going to add a few things here and there, but the movie was very, very true to the whole year, especially the times that I can account for that I was, physically there. But talking to the guys over the years, they did a great job with that.
Oh man, that's awesome. Now let's switch gears to the Blue Jackets here in your current role here, Don. You've basically made a career out of starting franchises, building franchises. And, what is it about the challenge of that? And when you look at this Blue Jacket team, what was it about it that attracted you so much to this job?
Well, when I came in and met with Mike Priest and ownership, I asked the question, what's the game plan here? Are we trying to rebuild? Are we trying to retool? And they 100% said retool. And I know their lineup. I mean, we played against them and, being in the business you follow. And that's what I wanted to hear. Obviously, I didn't want to go through a rebuild at this point in my career. And I think we have a lot of good young pieces here. So when I met with the ownership and Mike, it was like, it got me excited to say, you know what, we can make something happen here. It's not going to happen overnight, but I think we've already taken some strides and, hiring Dean Everson, I think it's going to do a great job for his coaching. And, to me, with the salary cap era, you're going to need young players on your roster. I mean, you look at some of the guys we have, the Fantillis and Johnsons, Sillingers, and, goes on. There's a lot of good young players here that are only going to get better. And then you supplement them with the veterans of, Johnny Hockey, signed Sean Monahan, and, Boone Jenner, and some of these other guys. I think we got a good mix of the veterans and the young players. And, the big thing about playing, couple things. One is you got to make it where the guys want to enjoy playing for each other. And in this game, scoring goals is what ultimately it takes to win games. But doing that, you need the structure in place, and I think that's where Dean comes in, because Dean's past, this 3 full years in Minnesota, he made the playoffs every year. The accountability to the players want structure today. They want to be told what to do and when to do it. And the other thing that goes with that is the mindset. I've sensed when I first got here, we're going to certainly work on that. The mindset is it's acceptable how things have gone, and it's not. If you continue to miss the playoffs every year, it's not acceptable. Our goal is to win a Stanley Cup. Our goal is to compete every year for the Stanley Cup. Is there steps to go get there? Absolutely. But we got to have the mindset that, we can't accept losing. And that's one of the big things that I feel that we can change here very quickly, that, people get content in what they're doing. And it's not the players. It trickles down to the staff too. So, that's the one thing that I'm a very positive person, that, you say, if we go into the season saying, we're hoping to make the playoffs, that's not the right attitude. We're going into the season to try to win the Stanley Cup, and then you let the pieces fall in place.
Don, when you come into a team like Columbus, do you have a blueprint that maybe you've used over the past in Carolina, in the Atlantas, the IHL experiences? Or do you have to feel things out and sort of get a feel for where the team is as the season's going on and make some decisions down the line?
Well, there's no doubt. You know the players from a distance, but you don't know them in the locker room. And, one of the big questions when I was calling the players when I first got the job, do you want to be part of the success or not in the future? Because we want players that want to be here and want to be part of the progression going forward. So the blueprint is kind of not in place. I look at our roster. I like our roster, but our roster's got to continue to get better. It's hard to make a lot of changes. I think we made 4 or 5 changes now with letting a few players go and signing some guys. I think, again, the biggest change we made is getting Dean Everson as our head coach. I think Dean will do a great job for us. But so the blueprint is not exactly, because you're not starting from scratch. You have a lot of pieces in place, which are a lot of good pieces. Now you got to supplement those pieces with even more players around them. So not looking for wholesale changes. I don't make changes for the sake of making change. Every change we make is to try to make our hockey club better.
Yeah, Don, you talked about a roadmap. It's that you have. You talked about a roadmap in your introductory press conference, and you just talked about the way you like to build your teams. And you said yourself that this isn't a quick fix. And just if like say for instance your idea of building a team from point A to Z, just to just kind of like from start to finish. If I guess what I'm wondering is, we said this is no quick fix, but it's not a rebuild either. Where do you see that this team is? Are we halfway there? Are we like where in your mind is this team to getting close to the finish line, to the team that you want this team to be?
Yeah, well, I think a couple things with that. One is some of our younger players are going to get more experience. We have, I think it was 7 players with less than 3 years pro experience, and every year that they play, they're not only going to get better, but they get more mature and understand the NHL. So I think that's a big piece of it too. But answering your question, we're further ahead than probably our record shows of last few years. When I look at the players, there's no reason why we can't take a big step forward from previous seasons. Now, saying that, you got to get some breaks along the way. We've had injuries, problems, which I've been spending lots of times on why that's happened, because we've been pretty much number one in man game losses. And when you don't have a real deep roster, you can't afford to lose your key guys. So those are some things that there's got to be some luck involved too as you continue throughout the season.
Is that one of the areas Dean Evison helps fill in as well? You mentioned you've got some young players on this squad. Dean Evison obviously played for quite some time in the NHL, has coached in the NHL as well, and might be able to help these young guys get to where they want to be.
100%. We had the luxury, and I know people were wondering if I was ever going to hire a coach, but there was 32 teams, 31 teams had a coach. We were the only team that was still looking for a head coach. And, when I let Pascal go, I think it was a week before the draft, we had the draft coming up, we had free agency. And I said, we don't need to be in a rush for this. We got to do our due diligence. And all these guys, great support from Rick Nash and Chris Clark and John Davison to go out and talk to everybody about any potential candidate to coach our team. And we did that for almost 3 weeks before we formally interviewed him. We talked to some guys along the way, but we formally interviewed. And I think that was a huge advantage for us to be able to not have to rush into a decision. And everything kept coming back to Dean. And so when we brought him in here and we all interviewed him, it's clear that he was our number one choice. And I think Dean, what you see is what you get. I think he can be very hard, but he's very fair. And again, today's player, they want to be told what to do, when to do it, and that's where structure and accountability. And I think that's a strength for Dean.
Yeah, Don, and just to kind of elaborate that on that a little bit, is because I'm genuinely curious how these conversations go sometimes, right? Like, because you look at the names that were thrown out there, like the McClellans of the world, the Woodcrofts, Dean Evison. When you're talking to coaches and when you're interviewing coaches, especially the experienced guys, what is it about it? Because like systems don't change a ton when it comes from coach to coach, right? Is it more of a chemistry thing? Are you looking to click right away? What are you looking for when you interview a coach?
Yeah, I think the relationship, you find out quickly if you're going to be able to work well with somebody. But with Dean, it was 100% his passion, and he wanted this job clear cut. He was very upfront about it, and every time I talked to him on the phone, he had done his homework on the team. He clearly had the passion, and then brought him in. He showed that to everybody. Not only, obviously, I think his knowledge of the game is outstanding, but he really believed that he could help this team take that next step. That's what you got to have. Everybody's got to be on board, as I said before, and particularly when you're talking about your head coach. He's the one that's pulling the strings behind the bench and deciding who's going to play on what line, the power play. And Dean brings that, not only that accountability culture, but very much the passion to get the job done.
You mentioned you had time to decide who your head coach was going to be. As you get hired as a GM, and obviously you've had years of experience with it, but is it hard to be patient? Do you want to make that mark right away and get that in there? Did you have to kind of hit the brakes on yourself a little bit?
Well, I'll be honest with you, I had so much going on that it didn't really, I said, I don't have the time to really focus on this until we get through free agency.
Sure.
The draft is coming up, and my last few years doing all the jobs I did in Carolina, I didn't get out to see the players, and we had the 4th pick in the draft and another pick in the 2nd round high, and along with all the rest of the picks. I watched so much video of these players just to get to know them, because, like I said, the 4th pick is critical that we hit that right. We think we did Caden Lindstrom, but so as much as in back of my mind, I knew it was something that we hadn't done. It wasn't for me because I just had so much else on my plate to get done. And the one thing we knew, the draft, the NHL wasn't going to postpone the draft. The NHL wasn't going to postpone free agency. So I knew those were hard dates that I had to be prepared for. And then we'd get on to the coaching.
There's no place to appeal a later draft, is there?
Yeah, no, I wish.
The bubble in Vegas couldn't hold off, huh?
I was going to say, had you already been researching, or what was the preparation like as opposed to past draft years?
Well, I wasn't very familiar with the draft, I'm going to be honest, in Carolina, because of the way the setup was there. And we were, obviously in the playoffs there. I spent very little time in the draft. And so, this all happened. I think we lost on a Thursday night in Game 6 in the 2nd round of the Rangers, and then resigned the next day, and got permission on Sunday to seek other employment. And by Thursday, I was taking the job here. So it all happened so quickly that I didn't have a lot of time to think about, the draft and everything else until I actually put the boots on the ground here, and then started prioritizing what was the most important thing that we had to accomplish in a short time before the draft.
Now, it looked to me like, you can tell me if I'm wrong for sure, but it looked to me like there was a clear plan in this draft. That was to add size, skill, and speed. Now, was that the motive here? Because the motivation here, the plan, because those first couple of picks, these guys are going to be huge. These guys are going to look huge on the ice here, Don.
Well, I can't say it was an exact plan, but I spent a lot of time those 2 weeks before the draft looking at what we already had and who we drafted in the past, who was coming, and we have some really good players coming, but we're not on we're on the smaller size, let's just say, of NHL today. So in the back of my mind, when I met with our scout group out in Vegas before we did our pre-scout meetings, I made it known that unless there's special players, I'm not going to rule out if there's a great little player, a smaller player that's really going to help us. But I said, if everything's equal, we need to add some size and speed and some muscle to this team. And so, like I said, when I look back at it, I never thought that we'd end up with all the big, strong defensemen as we did. But after the draft, what you do, what I do anyways, after the draft, you draft these guys because some of them weren't on my radar at all. I started watching video of them, find out what kind of player they were before they get here, and then we had development camp right after. So, you get that opportunity to know them a little bit through video, and then you get to meet them and see them in person. And as you walk away from the draft, time will tell, because as we all know, the draft, none of these guys are coming out immediately and playing for us. Over the next few years, we'll see how well we did, but I feel very good about on draft day and the days after watching these guys.
For the young guys, sorry, go ahead, Chad.
No. I was just gonna get a quick follow up because I gotta know: was the Sphere just wild? No, just to be in. Was the Sphere just ridiculous?
Yeah, it was quite an experience, for the NHL to pull that off in there. When you're down on the floor, you don't get a good feeling for how big the place is until you see some of the video from the draft of how big this building was. When you're on the floor, you don't get to see the whole seating bowl as much as the video shows it. But what the NHL did out there, I've been to too many drafts, I guess, but this was incredible and the experience. And because right now that's going to be the last draft in person for the time being. We're going to do drafts in our home cities going forward, at least for next year. And so to leave on that kind of experience was pretty outstanding.
It's fun to watch. Pretty neat to see the guys pop up on the big bubble on the outside so everyone could kind of witness who had gotten drafted. But I was just going to ask a little bit about the young players, Don. You mentioned the development camps. I know the prospect tournament's coming up, I believe, in Buffalo this year, in the near future, here at the beginning of September. Is this the first chance you get an opportunity? Obviously, you've seen them play in the minors or in college or whatever clubs they may have played with over in Europe, but is this the first chance you get to see them kind of together as a team in that NHL setting?
Yeah, 100%. I've only seen a few of these guys live that are going to play here over the years. So this will be, it's great for them. I think these rookie camps and tournaments are excellent because it happens to the young players. If they just come in and, years ago, they used to come in the big camp. The intimidation of coming in that locker room with all the best players was overwhelming for these young players. And so I think these young players having this opportunity for 3 games to play against their peers where they feel good about their game. We get an opportunity to see them play against guys of their ability and age before they get in the big camp. And I think it's a great lesson for the players, but it's a great scouting tool for us in management.
Now I know this is, this might be too much inside baseball. I don't know if it's boring, but I'm just so curious about the general manager position when you're drafting these young kids, right? And you see a lot of these guys, they're going back to juniors, they're going back to, some of them might even sign their entry level contracts. Like I'm just curious, what are those conversations like, right? Is it as easy as just, no, I'm going back here, or are you trying to convince them to see if they come up? Like what are those conversations like with your young draft picks?
Yeah, most of those conversations will happen more at our rookie tournament, and then when you get to training camp, you don't want to break any dreams before they come, right?
Yeah,
everybody's got that opportunity to make a team in September, and over the year I've had lots of surprises. We had a kid, Seth Jarvis, that we took 13th, and in my mind he was going back to juniors regardless of what happened. He was so darn good in training camp. We were forced to keep him. And he made his way to the team, and now he's going to be a heck of a player in Carolina. So I always say, what you try to do, you want to tell the kids when they come to development camp, ask questions, but more importantly, prepare yourself that you're trying to make this hockey club. And when they come in, and first wave will be in Buffalo, and then come to the big camp, and we'll see where it goes. And then when you sit down and talk to the kids after, a lot of them, that are junior age, playing in the Canadian Hockey League, will go back for another junior year, and a couple of the Europeans will go back to Europe. So, to me, you want to give everybody that hope, and because that's their dream to play in the NHL. If I draft them and say, "Well, we'll see you in 3 years," that's probably not the best approach to take, in my opinion.
Don, is it important for you as the general manager to see these guys at these prospect tournaments and get an idea for when, where, and how they might fit in with the team?
For sure. And I think that's I look at it as one of my things I feel like I do best is projection. It's all about projection, because, I keep looking at my board over here. I want to know who's coming next year, the year after. And it may change, it might change throughout the year. But I always feel like once I see a player play live, I'm going to have a pretty good idea of when he's going to have a chance of playing for our NHL team. So I think it's critical for me to see those guys play in those atmosphere and that atmosphere, and then again see them here in training camp. A lot of the guys will get a chance to play in real NHL exhibition games, which is a great recruiting or scouting tool for us.
Don Waddell, you've given us a lot of time, and we're so grateful for it. We just got a couple more for you before we'll let you get back to your night.
I'm just going to sleep here tonight, so it doesn't matter.
Oh, really?
I'm comfortable here.
Is that a cot or a desk? I can't tell. Is that a cot or a desk?
That's over that way.
Oh, okay.
But moving right in.
Yeah, I wanted to touch on free agency. You said you weren't going to. Don't expect anything crazy, but you did sign a couple of guys in Sean Monahan and Jack Johnson, the native, the Columbus native. What did you see in those guys that was going to add to this team?
Well, I really felt that we could really use a number one center. We got some guys that are going to be number one centers. Adam Fantilli's going to get there, but he doesn't need that pressure right now as a young player. Sean Monahan had great success with Johnny Gaudreau in Calgary. Johnny's a talented player. I've had him with U.S. teams. Should be our best player, highest paid player. But we have to give him somebody to play with. And it just happened when we looked at the centers that are out there. There's 2 or 3 that we felt would do that. And Sean, when we talked to his agent on July 1st, really expressed a big interest in coming here. That's a big selling point. People talk about Columbus, and it used to be, maybe a place players didn't want to go. Players want to come here now. The ownership and management has treated these players unbelievable. I'm just amazed every day at things that I find out about what they do for players. So Sean wanted to be here. It's fortunate for Johnny that Sean's here, because I think, we're all hoping that they can reconnect. But with Sean and Jack Johnson, I also felt we needed some more leadership on this hockey team. You got Boone Jenner and you got Sean Corelli and Brunson. You got some good guys there, but with as many young players, we don't have a lot of between, and what I call in between players. There are a lot of good veterans now, and a lot of good young players, and not a lot of players in between. So I felt that bringing a few more veterans in, and we might even do something else before the end of the summer. I think helps the younger players. You get good leadership, good veteran players. It can be really big for our young players.
Well, Jack Johnson on that accord was one of those guys who helped build what Columbus became in 13, 14, 15, 16, and so on. Is that a big part of why you bring him in, so he can help build that back up again?
Yeah, what he did here, but more what he's done throughout his career. Here he is. He's not a young guy, and he played 80 games last year in Colorado on a good team. And when I talked to their GM, they had so many young players coming. He said, "Don, I'd love to bring him back. I just can't." He said, "You should sign him for sure." And obviously, Jack had an interest in coming here because of living in the area and that. So to me, it was a no-brainer. I brought Jack down here right after free agency, met with him at the arena here, talked to him for a while, and we had the deal done that night because he wanted to be here. We wanted him here. And the other thing, you also, when you lead, leading is not always vocal. Some guys are better leaders just by example. And, if you ever see Jack Johnson, and you will see him eventually, his conditioning is off the charts. He works out every single day. He built a huge gym in his house, even though now he comes here 3 days a week at our facility. He takes, and this is why he's been effective at this point in his career. So that can only rub off on our young players. When you see a guy that's played 18 years in the NHL with his success and how hard he works to keep it going, it's got, if I'm a young player and I'm thinking, I extend my career, every time I extend my career by a year or so, the average salary is $4 million a year now. It's pretty good living to make.
Now, Don, I know you probably can't tell us much, and I know you can't tell us much, but I have to ask because this is going to be a hot topic till something happens. What have the conversations with Patrick Laine have been like, or his representation, and where do we stand in that situation?
Yeah, lots of conversations. Patrick's made it clear that his time in Columbus is done in his mind. Saying that, we just aren't going to just push him out the door. We got to try to find a deal that makes sense for us, and that's the hope. But I can't guarantee it because it's he's got a big salary cap number. Teams are a lot of the competitive teams that are always in there are at the cap already. So it's not the easiest deal to be made. Obviously he just got out of the program last week, which is a big step for him. And I'm happy for him. But now, we're talking to everybody that we possibly can. Can't say that it's someplace where I'm close at all. I think it's going to take some time to try to figure this out, and hopefully it ends up a win-win for both of us. When a player, just because a player doesn't want to be here doesn't mean you're automatically going to trade them. But I understand the circumstances here are a little different, and so we're trying to make the best of it.
Now, one last hockey question here for you, and then I got a couple of little quick hitters here, Don. So obviously the goal every year is to win a Stanley Cup. But in your mind, when this franchise becomes a Stanley Cup contender, something they've never done in the history of this franchise, what type of team is in your mind is it going to take to get there, right? Because every team is built a little differently, right? And you talked about it in your mind, but in your mind, what does this team look like when it starts to contend for a Stanley Cup?
Well, it starts. I believe it starts down the middle. It's a baseball analogy. You have good centers. You're really good at the back end. Your defense, to me, is a critical part of your team. The less time you play in your zone, the more chances you have to score goals in this game. Whoever scores the most goals wins the game. So, and then it comes down to goaltending. You don't have to be great goaltending. You have to be solid goaltending. The days of the Martin Brodeurs and the Lenny Belforts, all these kind of guys, those days are there's a few and far between. There's still a few great ones, but your goaltending needs to be solid. But more importantly, if your defense is really good, least amount of time you spend in your zone is critical. I'm a big zone time person because of what I just went through in my former team. The less time you play in your zone, the better chance you have to win games. And then down the middle, for lots of reasons. Offense, defensively, face-offs. Face-offs is an overlooked thing in our sport, I think. Face-offs, you start with the puck, you got a better chance of scoring more goals again. Start if you're a 45% face-off team, always chasing the puck. It's just harder game to play. Or if you start with the puck more often, it's going to give you a better chance to have success with them. So that's pretty much the key as we continue to build this and look to try to bring in championships here at Columbus.
Has Cheryl sold the house in Carolina yet? Is that why you're sleeping in the office?
House is sold.
Okay, all right.
I was a little disappointed because it took about 29 hours to sell it, but we're very fortunate. It sold quickly. Cheryl came up the day of the press conference and looked at 19 houses in 2.5 days, and before we left that Friday, bought a house. So it's the 23rd house we bought together, so we kind of know what we want. She knows what she wants. So we're moved in already, and everything's good.
A lot of experience buying the houses. Don, I got to ask you real quick. The Stadium Series this year, this is the first time Ohio's had this. Columbus has had this. It's pretty exciting, obviously, for the fans, for the players, for the front office. Is there that same excitement to kind of show the world? You went through this in Carolina. This gives you a real opportunity to show you what it's all about.
At the time of the outdoor game that I went through, it's one of the 2 or 3 best memories of hockey for me. Obviously, as part of a Stanley Cup team in Detroit, but it was outstanding. And what people are going to witness here at Ohio State, especially playing against the Red Wings.
Yeah.
You know, it's so cool of an atmosphere. The NHL with these major events does a great job. We just talked about the draft at the Spear. The show that they put on is incredible. Obviously, the game's important. It's a 2-point game, but what happens around the game, the activities, it's once in a lifetime. You know, you get the outdoor game, you might never get it again, or it's going to be probably 20 years before you get it again. So playing at the shoe, as I learned all these names around the city here. I just actually toured it last week, so it was very impressive. I really hope people get that opportunity to come out. It's going to be a great experience.
Don Waddell, you have been so gracious with your time, and we are so thankful.
For sure.
We are again, we can't wait to see how you build this franchise and turn it into a Stanley Cup contender. Again, we're so grateful for your time, and thank you so much for joining us here on the Garage Beers podcast.
No, I wouldn't have missed it. I enjoyed it very much, and be happy to come back whenever you don't have any guests at all. And, you know, you're speed dialing in 10 minutes before your show. You need
We'll write it down. Right. We'll just say, like, anytime we need somebody, let's call Don. Thank you so much.
Thanks,
Don.
guys. Enjoyed it. Thank you.
Appreciate it, Don.
Appreciate it. Take care. And that was Don Waddell, president of hockey operations and general manager of the Columbus Blue Jackets. Matt, how awesome was that, man? It's not very often you get a chance to have a conversation with a president, a general manager of any company, let alone a sports franchise. And here we had Don Waddell. I don't know your takeaways from that conversation we just had, Matt.
Yeah, he's a down to earth. I think one of the things I love about doing what we're doing right here is the research that we put into it and the things you learn about people. And what I learned about Don Waddell is the guy's traveled. He's been here, he's been there, he's been everywhere. He never was a big-time NHL player, but he played professional hockey for years on years on years. And we didn't get to this. There's always questions you leave out, but at one point he was running a porta potty business in Toledo. It had success.
We
didn't forget to bring it up, but he had success with that, and then he goes back into coaching, and he's one of those guys. What I loved about the hire initially, and when you saw it, the way he turned Carolina into a blue-collar team. They became gritty. They were winning pucks at the net. He got Rob Brindamore to come in. He was that style, one of the guys who led Carolina to their Stanley Cup championship all those years ago. And that's something I feel the Blue Jackets lost there for the last few years. And that's what was so big in those years with Nick Foligno, with Cam Atkinson, with everyone on those squads, the Jack Johnsons. It just kind of was starting to go away again. And now you've got another blue-collar guy in. I think he's going to set that tone again, looking at these free agent signings. You mentioned the Monahan signing. I love that one. Played with Gaudreau in Calgary. He was a winner in Winnipeg last year. At one point, they were the best team in the NHL record-wise. He's going out there. He's bringing guys in. Dean Evison, I like that pick as a head coach as well. He's a veteran. Like I mentioned, he's a guy who's played in the NHL. He knows what these young guys are looking for in their career. So I think talking to him just reassures that. As fans of the teams, as fans listening, hopefully you get that takeaway as well. I mean, he's here to make a mark, and he's done it everywhere he's been.
Yeah, you could tell. I mean, you could just kind of tell. And you know what? I appreciated his honesty too. Like you don't typically get that. Like the Patrick Laine comment that he meant that he said. I mean, he could have very well said, conversations. He could have very well given us GM speak, and conversations with Laine are ongoing. We'll hopefully he comes back. No, he was like, you know what? Patrick Laine's time in Columbus is done. Yeah, right. I appreciated the honesty.
He's been that way in his press conferences as well. I mean, he's spoken. When the question gets asked, he gives you the answer. He doesn't beat around the bush. I think this is going to be, I hope, great for Columbus and the Blue Jackets, and I hope this franchise starts going the right way again.
Now, I want to get your thoughts on something before we transition to the next thing here, Matt, because obviously the conversation surrounding this team, this team can when they're going right, can score with anybody. They have the talent to put the puck in the back of the net, right?
Yeah, they've got the skill.
But they've had trouble keeping the puck out of the back of their own net. Like, where do you stand as far as this blue line and the goaltending goes?
Well, that's what he mentions, defense. He went out and got some defense during the draft. He's, I'm sure, looking to see what he can do as far as we go through the rest of the season. He brought up the fact that goaltenders got to be there. I think he made good signings in free agency, bringing Jet Greaves back. I know he's been playing most of his time here in Cleveland, I should say, but I think that's a guy that really has a future. Seeing him, I know you've seen him in Monsters games. He's got potential to be a guy. He's just got to finish putting the puzzle together, I really think. And then you've got the goaltending. Elvis Merzlikins, we'll see what he's capable of, but we know he's capable of being a solid goaltender as well. It's the defense that has to figure a few things out on that blue line, but he came in and made some change. Guys went on their way, and again, he drafted some players in there. So I think he's got an idea for what he wants to do defensively. Yes, that has to be an area of this team that certainly gets better.
Is it all right? Last thing, because is this, in your opinion, is this a shit or get off the pot year for Elvis, or has it been more of a blue line issue when it comes to Elvis? Or is it a mix of both?
Well, I mean, a tremendous blue line can make a lot of guys look really good. Look at the Chicago Blackhawks when they won their Stanley Cups. They didn't always have the greatest goaltending, but man, they had guys back there who would make sure if the puck was blocked, it wasn't going to get on the net on a rebound. So, yeah, I think that plays a role. I do think there's a little something to Elvis. Rumors were he wanted to trade last year. He came out, for lack of a better word, during one of the press conference, or not press conference, but one of the questions after one of the games. He said, yeah, I don't really want to be here. He's honest. You have to appreciate that too. But he put it aside, did start playing for them. So, yeah, I think this is his year to show what he's capable of doing. If he wants out of Columbus, I think pieces are there that you could make a good trade for him if he shows he's that capable player, if he still wants out. Or he could be that next Sergei Bobrovsky who lifts the Blue Jackets to some success. But, yes, I do think this is his year to finally show what he's capable of doing. I know expectations were high for him coming in. I don't think they've quite been met yet.
No, definitely not. And I mean, obviously, you had the death of his best friend.
Yeah.
And, I've said this before. You never want to downplay what he went through mentally when he lost to, Matisse.
For sure.
But, it's been a couple years now. It's like there comes a time when he has to be able to put that aside and perform on the ice, no?
Yeah, he's still the starting goaltender for the Columbus Blue Jackets. That's what he wants to be. He wants to be a starting goaltender in the NHL, and right now they're the ones giving him his chance. So that's where he's got to make his name. Even if he wants out, he's got to make his name in Columbus, it seems.
All right, we see you in the comments, but so if you please get in there. If you guys, tell me what you're drinking. Tell me what if you have a comment on tonight's show, the Don Waddell interview. That was just incredible, and I can't wait for the world to hear it. Let alone all 600 people who are in this live stream right now, Matt. We got 600 people. Can you believe it?
That's crazy. Yeah, that's fantastic. It was a fun interview.
Now, before we transition to the next thing, because I want to touch on a couple of other things before we get out of here for the night, let's go to one of our favorite segments of the week, and that's our asshole of the week.
We're going straight into that?
Straight into it. And we usually kind of cut the show in half. And this is we just call out somebody who deserves to be called out for being an asshole. It could be funny, serious, whatever. What is your asshole of the week here, Matt?
You're making me go first. You told me about this segment. I've been watching, obviously. I knew about the segment as well. I've seen how you guys do it. I don't think I've had a harder decision maybe in my life than coming up with this one. I knew the area I was going to, but I couldn't make the decision on who exactly it was. On one hand, I was going with an individual. I was thinking a whole country because of the Olympics. But I'm sure everyone who's been watching Mondo Duplantis, we saw him go up, break the world record in the pole vault for Sweden. He was born in Louisiana. What are you doing, Mondo?
What are we doing?
His mother's Swedish. His dad's from Louisiana. His brother played baseball at LSU. America's pastime? And you're jumping for Sweden in the pole vault? Come on, Mondo. All kidding aside, amazing what that guy ended up doing. And then they showed him meeting with his girlfriend, who's apparently a Swedish supermodel. So I guess the Swedes had some incentives there as well. I think his dad is actually the coach for the pole vaulters in Sweden as well. So they did what they could, but his native language is English. Seems a little shaky to me. So I'm calling him out on that one. Mondo Duplantis there.
You son of a bitch, Mondo.
Yeah. Sweden a little bit for stealing him, too. Come on.
Well, that was better than what I had because my asshole of the week was going to be training camp because stop getting injured, Brown.
Yeah, no kidding.
Okay? Stop
Could
getting
we?
injured. All right?
Are we wearing the puffy helmets and everything now? Shouldn't we be stopping?
Yeah, people were asking me like, "Oh, Brown's training camp." I'm like, "No, I'm not excited. Just like this team is good for once. Just don't get hurt.
I want to get out of it, yeah.
I don't care what they just don't get hurt, and people just keep getting hurt, Matt. So training camp's an asshole for me.
I'll go with it. I think that's absolutely fair. As Cleveland fans, I think we feel that more than most teams when we see the injuries in training camp.
Yeah. Well, here we go. And Sean out in the comments here says Storms are assholes as well. Yeah, Storms are.
That's fair. I wasn't ready for that one. That came on me kind of quick. I didn't think we were going to get what we got.
Yeah, for sure. Storms are definitely assholes because my God, was that wasn't a storm. That was a warning from God.
Yeah,
that was like, hey, I'm still here, guys.
It was like, I'm going to beat up South Carolina and then sucker punch the Midwest. I wasn't ready for that at all.
Yeah, exactly, man. Jeez, oh man. But
I'll give it that for sure.
Yeah, I mean, if anybody else has an asshole of the week, put it in the comments. If you got a good one, we'll put it up there. But let's move on now. Let's stick with the Browns, since we just talked about the training camp. A report came out today that the dome is definitely getting built in Brook Park, Matt. I mean,
what they're saying.
Just your overall thoughts on that.
It's interesting. We're living in the year 2024. The Browns want the new stadium. They seem to be able to get the funding that they want to build it in Brook Park, not in downtown Cleveland. I guess they got to go ahead and do it. They've got to go ahead, essentially, don't they? I know there's still that whole I keep hearing about this, the Art Modell rule. I don't know how that associates. Brook Park's not another state. It's right down the road from Cleveland. So it seems a little weird to be like, oh, someone has to be able to purchase them. But again, it seems like an odd thing because no one would purchase them, I don't think, knowing that you can't move them just down the road if you wanted to without some sort of vote.
Right.
So either way, it stays with the Haslams and they move them down the road to Brook Park, I feel.
Right, yeah. I mean,
I think it's happening.
Yeah, I think it's 100% happening. I mean, that when you look at that stadium, first of all, it's a cookie cutter stadium that was just built way too quickly, right? There was no thought being put into it. The NFL just wanted to rush the Browns back to the NFL.
So they just
threw up something. And logistically, that stadium is tough, right? I know people are going to talk about nostalgia. Right, I know people are going to talk about what's going to happen to the pit, what's going to happen to the Muni lot. All you're doing is switching the location that you get hammered at before you go into the game.
Yeah, right? There's going to be stuff down in Brook Park, I would imagine, popping up as soon as that stadium pops up. People wanting to make their money the way they can. But
yeah,
I agree with you. My favorite part of last year was, I think, when the Browns clinched the playoffs and everybody was leaving the stadium and whoever was showing it, ESPN, ABC, NBC, was like, oh, the Browns fans all going to celebrate. And they're like, that's the only exit. That's the only way people can go to get away from the stadium. Like, I'm not saying they weren't celebrating, but it wasn't exactly what they were saying. Any Browns fan, I think, knew that.
And then on the other side of that, how could you not want like a fancy new $1 billion stadium that you're going to go indoors? You're not going to have to worry about the elements. Like, sure, put your Carhartt on in December to get hammered in the parking lot. Then go in, and you know what? You're comfortable. You don't got to worry about wearing hand warmers. I mean, maybe I sound kind of diva-ish here.
No, you're right.
But you're going to be comfortable watching this game, right? I mean, for as much like bitching as people will do, Matt, that stadium's still going to be full every Sunday. So I get the backlash, but at the same time, at the same token, I don't, because it's gonna be like incredible, the neighborhood that they're gonna build.
That's my favorite thing with sports fans. Me being one as well. I'm accusing myself of this, but almost the hypocrisy I feel in that, like, oh, these guys, they can't do that. I'm never gonna watch them again. And then the next week you're at the game or have it tuned up on the TV, and they're still making the same amount of money they were off you anyway. But I agree with you. I think you look at the excitement that came to Cleveland this year when we had opening day for the Guardians. We were hosting the women's NCAA championships. The moon somehow miraculously was going right past the sun at the perfect time, and we were in the perfect location. Everyone wanted to be in Cleveland. And I think that bigger stadium, that dome stadium, allows for more things like that to happen. Granted, in Brook Park, but it's a stone's throw from Cleveland. I think when you get big events that could pop up there, like NCAA tournaments, things of that nature, Cleveland will be visited. People can stay in Cleveland, drive into Brook Park, and still enjoy the city, I think, from that standpoint. So I think it ends up being a good thing one way or another. Maybe I'm wrong on that, but I agree with you. The nostalgia thing is certainly going to be missed by many people.
Well, sure, and I get it, right? Like, you can't, like, discount it,
Yeah.
right? Like, all the older Browns fans, like, I was, that old stadium, the lakefront, was a part of my life, a part of our life, till what, 94, 95?
Yeah, and there's something unique. I mean, football stadiums don't have their uniqueness. With it being right on the lake, it kind of gave it its own little feature, its own kind of personality.
Yeah, but when a WrestleMania comes here, when
You're right.
I don't know, Taylor Swift can come perform in Cleveland in February.
Enough said. T Swift, we're there.
Yeah, like, are you really going to bitch that much when you have something year-round to be able to go to? I don't think so.
No, I think that makes perfect sense. Plus, it gives you venues, as you mentioned, WrestleMania. We just hosted SummerSlam. It appeared to be a success from everything I saw. So
we set an American SummerSlam attendance record.
Yeah, how about that? An American? We did beat Europe. Who'd we lose to?
Not, yeah. They made sure they made
sure
they specifically said America. So hey,
we lost to a European group in SummerSlam.
We lead America.
Come on, Cleveland. We can do better than that.
Yeah. America, right? That's what they say, America. Like, we lead America in SummerSlam attendance.
Well, at least we got the American record. Thank goodness for that.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah, but it's nothing but good things coming for that Dome Stadium in Brook Park. But let's switch. Let's talk about training camp a little bit here, Matt. I mean, are you someone who gets into training camp, who gets excited about training camp, or are you? Because me personally, I'm not getting excited about this Brown season till the third preseason game, because I just don't need to watch Watson throw 10-yard outs to Elijah Moore like 5,000 times.
I'm not going to watch Watson at all, apparently, Saturday. Yeah, no, on Saturday, he's sitting out, everyone's upset. I do think it must have its place. I would think for a guy like Watson, who hasn't thrown the ball in quite some time, it might be a good place for him to get some game reps against live action, to actually be hit. I don't know if you really want to consider that a good thing, but it's something he's got to get used to after not playing for a while. But no, I don't get excited for training camp. I'll probably miss the game on Saturday. I think my wife has plans on going somewhere. I'm not that upset about it. It's training camp. Right now, the Guardians are one of the best teams in baseball, so I'm a little more excited about them. But no, training camp and preseason football was a thing I think I got excited about in my high school years, maybe college years. But as I've grown up, I've got too much other stuff going on to watch pretend football games that count. They're not pretend football games, but you get my point. Like, they don't matter anywhere. They don't count towards the standings. I know we as Browns fans there for a while like to brag that we went 4-0 one preseason, but no one really cares.
Preseason Super Bowl champs, Matt.
Yep, exactly. That's what we had to hang our head on. How sad was that franchise there for a while? But things are turning up. So, I'm a big proponent of let's let guys rest right now and see what they do with the regular season. Or we had 16 games now, 17 games in the regular season. So there's plenty of time to get going, I think, after weeks 1 and 2, although I always seem to get league play or division play going off fast.
Yeah, exactly. Now, obviously, the last thing I want to touch on with the Browns is these Brandon Ayuk trade rumors. What do you make of them? What are your thoughts on them?
Did I see something on social media that he was supposedly at the Hopkins airport or something the other night? Was this just rumor, or did someone actually catch him? Like,
people are trying. People will Photoshop anything these days,
right? Yeah,
just to get some likes.
It'd be remarkable, I think, if Cleveland was able to bring him in, if they were able to keep their core the way it is right now. I don't know how that's possible, because if I'm San Francisco, I'm saying you're going to have to give me quite a bit for this, regardless of what Ayuk wants. But if they could put him there, man, with Deshaun Watson, if he's capable of doing what we all think he can do, to have Cooper, Ayuk, and Jerry Jeudy, I mean, you're talking about a scary, scary offense.
Yeah. Now, if it means getting rid of Amari Cooper, do you still take Brandon Ayuk?
No, Amari Cooper, I think, has been too valuable to this team lately, and Ayuk's younger. I get that, but I feel like Amari Cooper is one of your core guys. Maybe I'm wrong. I haven't been in the locker room by any means, but it seems like Amari Cooper is one of those Jarvis Landry kind of guys. He leads by example. He's not as vocal, but he certainly seems to be the guy who kind of leads that receiving core and is getting guys where they need to be.
Yeah, and still has number one receiver ability. It's. I mean, obviously, if you had to give up Amari Cooper in a Brandon Ayuk trade, you get it, because when you look at the landscape of the NFL these days, so much emphasis is being put on age, right? Age guardrails, they call it.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So I mean, and Amari Cooper is going to be on the other side of 30 here, coming up shortly if he's not already. I don't know exactly what age he is, but and then you look at Brandon Ayuk, he's 26. He's got a higher ceiling. He's got upside. So it's a really interesting decision to see if that the Browns are going to make. Supposedly there's a framework for a deal in place, and
I heard that
Brandon Ayuk who he wants to go to between the Patriots, the Browns, and I guess the Steelers have re-engaged. So
are they back now? The Steelers are like eggs. They're in, they're out. They're in, they're out.
Exactly.
They're good for you. They're bad for you. They're good for you. That's last I'd seen. I thought the Steelers had been out again.
Yeah, according to Adam Schefter, they have re-engaged. So
they're back in it.
And which is interesting to me, because it's not a Steeler move to pay a guy, because it's reported that Ayuk wants $30 million plus a year, and that's just not a Steeler move. The Steelers do not pay big tickets for a lot of guys, right? They're a franchise that historically gets the most out of their guys, and then when they want their big ticket, they kind of get rid of them, or they kind of give them an offer and say, this is the most we can do. If not, buy. And which is fine for them, right? Because they draft so goddamn well, and I hate them for it. And
everyone
that's
does.
Part of the reason why I hate them for it, because I want the Browns to be the Steelers. And they look like they're on their way. But it just doesn't seem like a Steelers move. So it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think that's always been one of the remarkable things about the Steelers is regardless of who they get, and I mean, everything aside, they get a quarterback from Miami who ends up being one of the big names in the NFL by the time his career is over. They seem to know when to get rid of guys, too. Le'Veon Bell, the whole Brown situation. They've always seemed to be on the right end of things. When guys want to go, they say, all right, it's time for you to pack your bags and hit the road. And they don't seem to produce anywhere else. So, yes, it's one of the things I hate about the Steelers as well. They know how to grow guys, and they seem to do it in-house better than anyone else does.
Yeah. But first preseason game for the Browns this Saturday against the Green Bay Packers. Again, you're not going to see Deshaun Watson.
Should be a barn burner. Yeah.
You're not going to see Deshaun Watson, but you will see Jordan Love. So it's going to be,
Jameis Winston, too. It'll be interesting to see what Jameis Winston does. So there's some interest there.
Yeah, I mean, it's Jameis Winston, a guy who, I don't know, it seems like a younger Joe Flacco. I don't know. We'll see. But
it's an interesting take on that. Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah. Last thing I want to talk about before we get to our cheers of the week, Matt, here is the Guardians. You mentioned them a little earlier. Best record in baseball, if that is, if that still is true. I haven't checked the standings lately, but I know they're up there. For sure, and just I know. I mean, it's everybody knows how they're doing this year, right? I mean, it's going to be no shocker. But I haven't talked to you in a while, Matt. So I want to get your thoughts on how this Guardian season has played out so far.
Well, obviously, I'm excited about what's taking place. I think we all kind of thought maybe I'm wrong. Maybe a lot of people know baseball better than I do, and I'm willing to accept that. Terry Francona, I thought when he left, this guy's been doing it with popsicle sticks and bubble gum, it seemed, there for quite a few years, and was making this a playoff team. And then last year went the way it went. We brought in a new manager, Stephen Vogt, who I knew had been a catcher in Oakland, played for the A's. And had success from that position. But I thought, how are you going to bring a guy straight from being, what was he, a bench manager in Seattle at the time?
Yeah, bench manager.
He was one of the lower tier, manager, coach of guys out there. And my goodness, the guy's got to be up for coach of the year, I feel, with what he's done with the Guardians this season. Doesn't he?
Yeah, I mean,
he has to be in the conversation.
Yeah, 100%. I don't see how you can leave him out.
I love it. And what's fun this year, too, is we're doing it differently than we've been doing it all the years we had success. We're doing it, the bullpen is unbelievably good. And now we're like, all right, come on, starters. You just got to get us 4 or 5 innings. Let us get to the bullpen. Like, that's never been a case for the Cleveland Guardians or Indians or whatever we're calling them at whatever point in time and period. But, it's exciting, man. I was talking to my cousin or my nephew. He lives down in Texas. He gets excited for the Guardians and brought up the idea. He was like, do you think Quan could win MVP? It'd take a lot. He's not winning it this year by any means with what Bryce Harper's doing in Philly and some of the other guys. Well, that'd be National League MVP. But it'd take a lot for a guy to be a pure hitter. But, damn it, he's fun to watch, man. He doesn't strike out. He reminds me of Tony Gwynn back in the day. He just will not let you get him out. He's going to force you to make the play. He's great to watch.
Yeah, it's been an interesting season so far, right? Because, the calling card of this team for so long has been the starting pitching, right? It's been the starting pitching. And this year,
it's not.
The struggle, it's not. The struggle has been the starting pitching, but the offense has been able to has been able to pick up the starting pitching, and they've been able to have success out of that, man. So it's kind of a weird role reversal that this team has gone through this year.
Yeah, I remember one of the memes early in the season when it started. It was right before Easter, and somebody said, "Who'd have thought?" It was a meme or something. Somebody had said it to me, but it says Jesus coming back to see the Cleveland Guardians in first place in leading Major League Baseball in runs, or something like along those lines. And you thought, oh yeah, because it'll probably come to an end before too long, but it hasn't. The offense has been amazing this year for the Guardians. And you know what's fun too, Chad, is when they lose, they're still in games.
Yeah,
they're not getting blown out. I mean, from time to time, but last night was another example. It looked like they were done for. They forced extra innings. They forced it into a 10th inning. Things go a little awry, and Arizona ends up winning. But it's a great team to watch. Man, they're one of the best teams in baseball. It doesn't look like that's coming to an end anytime soon, although this portion of the schedule does seem to be a little bit tougher for them.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting how you got to ride. I mean, we talk about it all the time on this podcast, Matt. It's interesting how you got to ride the ebbs and flows of a baseball season.
Yeah.
Right? Like, because it's just so long. And I love it when I see people online, right? I love it when I see people online going nuts over, the Guardians have lost 5 in a row. What's Stephen Vogt doing, or what's Terry Francona doing? But it's just, we're still over 50 games left in this season, Matt. So it's like, at what point do you just start to get totally concerned about the Guardians, or at what point is it? It's just a weird place to be, to get upset at the Guardians, even though it's a marathon and just and not a sprint. Like the total cliche that there is about a baseball season, but it's just. You just give them a little bit more time, right? I'll worry more about how they're playing in game 140, 145, especially when they're competing like this year with the best record in baseball.
Yeah. I mean, at this point of the season, I think, too, is one of the key things. The best record in baseball. It's fun to say 3 weeks, a month, maybe 2 months into the season. But, I mean, when you're getting to this point of the year, and we're seeing the back half of the year now, and we're not the best team in the division, which has historically not been so great, but oddly is really good this year, and we're still sort of running away with it. I think we're at 4 games up on Minnesota at this point, who's playing very good baseball as well. But, yeah, this team, we find things to complain about as fans, especially as Cleveland fans. But it's hard to get too down on this Cleveland Guardians team, because I feel anytime you start to have that feeling, what was the stat I saw the other day? They haven't lost more than 3 games in a row this season, or maybe they haven't lost 3 games in a row yet.
Right.
That's awesome. Like, when you start to get down on them, they just win again. And you're like, all right, there's the Cleveland Guardians we all know. They're the home runs. What was that game the other night against Baltimore where they bashed 10 runs, and 5 of them were home runs? Like, I mean, the ball's just sailing this year at Progressive Field. They're a fun team to watch. And like I said, it's hard to stay down on them. You can always get down on them, but they've been hard to stay down on this year by any means.
What did you think about the moves they made at the trade deadline? Now, I mean, it's obviously Lane Thomas and Alex Cobb. Alex Cobb is almost back, right? He had a blister. He had a little bit of a setback, so he needs another rehab start. But Alex Cobb was an all-star last year. So whenever he's been able to be in the rotation, he has been a solid starter, right? Not maybe, a few years back, 2013, he was great. He was an ace for the Tampa Bay Rays, but he's been solid throughout his career. Lane Thomas, a guy who mashes left-handed pitching. These just seemed like total Guardians moves, right? You're never going to expect this Guardians team to go get the big names, right? You're never going to expect them. You're always going to expect them to try to make smart, calculated moves. What did you think of those moves at the deadline?
Yeah, I liked them. I liked the fact that there were no real glamorous moves this time around. Again, Thomas and Cobb, great pickups. You had a bat. You had some pitching to the rotation, something that they've needed this season. But I think one of the biggest things they do is they want to keep this core together. You want to keep this team going. There were no major guys going out. There's the prospect aspect of things that I know a lot of people can get upset about. I won't lie. I don't follow the prospects well enough to understand everyone. It seems so many times when we've traded the next great prospect, they didn't seem to work out wherever it was they went. So somebody knows something in the front office. I've questioned them before many times. I think we all sort of do. And somehow this team, either in spite of the front office or because of the front office, always seems to have the success. So I've given up questioning them in a negative way, but I do like the additions they've had here at the trade deadline.
Well, it's interesting that you say that, right? Like you've given up questioning them, right? But for so long, it was. I mean, they're cheap. They don't spend money. They don't make moves. Like when in reality, in the past, when they've contended, they haven't been shy about making moves. But like I said earlier, it's calculated moves, right? Should we be past the point? As Guardians fans / Indians fans of questioning this front office because they just kind of are what they are at this point, right?
Yeah, I think. I mean, look, we can argue that they make enough money. They should be spending a little more as fans. That's very easy for us to say. Nobody's putting the money in our pockets. But yes, I would say with the front office doing what they do with the amount of money they're told they can spend, they seem to always figure out a way to make this team competitive. So I will tell you that I'm not going to question until I see the product on the field. And when it starts to go bad, I'll say, whoa, what were they doing in that case? But it seems like so many times, oddly, they've come out on top. I know there's a few botched trades in there over the last couple of years, but you forget about them due to the fact that this team continues to have the success that they do with kind of these homegrown guys who've been playing in the minors, coming up to Cleveland and having the success they have. The Quans, the Ramirez's, everybody's. Beavers.
Yeah, 100%. So it's going to be interesting to see how the rest of this Guardians season plays out. I mean, obviously, I think they're totally going to win the division. I mean, now when it comes
to tough division this year, though,
it is a tough division. I mean, the Royals are surging. I mean, the Twins are going to be there. But yeah, I mean, with this team, what appears to be headed straight towards the playoffs. What do you make of this team as far as the postseason goes? Now, again, I don't want to just put the cart before the horse here, but if this team is able to make the postseason, what do you give them? The chances that you give them come playoff time. What do you think?
Yeah. Best of 7 series against some of these teams, particularly the AL East, where things are always tough. Yankees seem to have figured out whatever they were screwing up earlier. The Baltimore Orioles seem to play very well against us. I think it gets tough. AL West always seems to give us headaches, whoever we end up meeting with, anybody out there. I don't know, but I think obviously we're on the right track. As I mentioned before, I think the stat was they haven't lost more than 3 games in a row. If they have, it hasn't been very often, and they haven't done it much this season. So I think they're a team that's very capable. You hear all the time, Major League Baseball's postseason is more about who's playing at the right time. Look at the Rangers last year. Perfect example. Everyone was giving them crap because they were celebrating a wild card when they blew the AL West division to the Houston Astros late in the season. You just got to get in. and you just got to perform at the right time. And by God, if this team performs the playoffs, if they do what they've been doing this year, when they get the offense rolling, when the bullpen can come out and shut teams down, this team becomes one of the scariest teams, I think, in the postseason. So I think they have real good chances.
All right, so let's transition one more time to the Cavaliers here, because we're going to talk about the Cavaliers. I want to touch on them just for a little bit here, Matt.
All right, I'll do my best with basketball, yeah,
and then get to our cheers of the week and get out of here, because we are approaching the 90-minute mark, which is where we like to, we typically like to end things between the 90 and 120-minute mark.
Glad I could help you get there.
I appreciate you and all that you stand for. Cavaliers, right? I mean, it's obviously from the moves they made this offseason, they weren't going to be able to do much, but it was clear that they had the plan to keep this core four intact, right? They extend Jared Allen, they extend Evan Mobley, they extend Donovan Mitchell, which was the top priority.
It's a big one
of this offseason. So, I mean, and I know everybody in every city loves to have a big splash as far as free agency goes, someone that wasn't on their team last year. But in reality, you look at the coach that they hired, and you got to think that was probably the biggest move of this offseason here for the Cavaliers and Kenny Atkinson, a guy who is known for player development, and then to give the big contracts to their core pieces. It says something about the confidence that this management group of the Cavaliers has in this core four, doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean, Mitchell signed shortly after the Atkinson hiring, if I'm not mistaken, as well, which seems to show that he's happy with who they've decided to place the head coaching realm, which I think in the NBA is one of the biggest things to stay on top of as a front office. Are your players happy, particularly the guys who score a lot of the points? And as you mentioned, keeping those core guys, that's what the Cleveland Cavaliers had to do. They had success last year. They're a young group of guys. It's a matter of teaching them how to sustain it, in my opinion. They knew they could go out there. They were playing with the Boston Celtics midway point of the season early on. They were beating teams nobody thought they could go out there and beat. And I remember listening to some radio shows, and people are talking about, well, the West is the complicated division, the conference. The East is the Boston Celtics. And lo and behold, 2 days later, the Cavaliers handed to the Celtics. So I think they're an exciting team. They're a young team, and they got to learn to sustain it. And hopefully that's what Atkinson can do. Teach them it's an 82-game season. Just because you're good at this point of the season doesn't mean you're good at that point of the season. You got to keep the work in. You got to keep the effort in. Obviously, injuries had a lot to do with that, particularly toward the playoff run. But if they can sustain it, they become one of the scarier teams in basketball, I think. Don't you?
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. I mean, like I said, it gives them the confidence that this team can go somewhere. I mean, if you look at the progression of this team and head coach JB Bickerstaff, they've gone from 17 wins to 38 wins to 41 wins to 50 wins to 55 wins. So, and there's nothing bad to say about JB Bickerstaff. It's just they were looking for someone to be able to take this team to the next level, and they think Kenny Atkinson is able to do that. And if he can get someone like an Evan Mobley going, and maybe return Darius Garland to his all-star form that he was 2 years ago, and people please stop hitting him in the face because he just has too many facial injuries. Stop it. I mean, you got to think that it's you got to think that Kenny Atkinson, you look at it as kind of the Mark Jackson to the Steve Kerr. I'm not saying by any means that Kenny Atkinson is Steve Kerr, but in a sense, like JB Bickerstaff was the coach to get this team back to a playoff contender, right? And that's what Mark Jackson was for the Warriors. Every year, the Warriors were playoff contenders. And now the Cavs were looking for the guy to take them to that next step, and they think Kenny Atkinson is the guy. So hopefully that is that it works out for him there, Matt.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. Again, I think I referenced this during the Blue Jackets talk. Is the Cavs are a blue collar team. I think we love that here in Cleveland. There's don't get me wrong, Donovan Mitchell. No one's calling him a slough. No one's calling any of the guys on this team a slough, but they're a team that has to work for their wins. I mean, they're in a conference that is now being ruled by the Boston Celtics. They won their championship this year. It's going to be hard to take it away from them, but the Cavaliers grind. And when they grind, they are a fun team to watch. They have success. They just beat up on teams. You can watch their games, and you just see teams wear down against the Cleveland Cavaliers, and unlike they do against other squads. That's my takeaway on what they were able to do last year when they had those successful runs.
All right, Matt, we have reached.
We did it.
Over an hour and a half here. And there's the number of people watching this has only increased, Matt. We're now almost up to 730 people here.
They must be clicking on the wrong link or something.
Watching the show, and I don't know.
That's awesome.
It must be bots. It could be bots.
Yeah, they're not expecting me. They're quickly shooting off there, right?
But let's get to our final segment of the week here. Let's get to our cheers of the week before we send out our thank yous. Matt, who is your cheers of the week? Let's end on something positive here. Let's go.
Man, I didn't stray too far on my cheers for the week from my asshole of the week. I'm staying in the pole vault pit in the Olympics. I live in Olmsted Township now, and we got a big celebrity jumping in the pole vault pit. I'm assuming fan of the show. She was on the show. I listened to it. 100%. Yeah, Katie Moon. I'm going to go with her. Olmsted Falls Bulldogs. Go Bulldogs. Got a headset on right now, so I can't put the hat on. But pretty exciting here. She's awesome for the community as well. She came back recently, brought some pole vault stars with her. The national championship from Rutgers, national champion from Rutgers, came by. They put on a show for the local kids, for the local community around here. So she gained a lot of fans, I think, that weekend, and certainly I'm into it. I think she's jumping tomorrow, pole vault tomorrow. So I'm excited for that. So my cheer to her is she goes up tomorrow is to try and get that second gold medal that she got out in Tokyo. Let's get it done in France. And either way, she's a winner. Folks here in Olmsted Falls love her.
One of the sweetest humans I think I've ever talked to in my life. Just a big old sweetheart.
Yeah, it was like I said. She did that pole vault thing here at Olmsted Falls, and she had nothing but great words for the community. Stayed, signed autographs for the young girls who were there watching her. As a father of 3 girls, that's one of the coolest things.
That's awesome.
I think you can get there. Yeah,
that's awesome. Well, we'll have to have her on again once she wins the gold medal.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Yeah.
I'm going to stay in the Olympics here for my cheers, Matt, and I'm going to give my cheers to Cole Hocker for winning the 1,500-meter final. And it is being touted as the biggest upset of the game so far.
That's what they're saying.
Yeah, he was. It was supposed to be between a man, Josh Kerr from Great Britain, and I can't pronounce the guy's name from Norway. But
yeah, I couldn't either. But I saw that as well. Yeah,
it was supposed to be a race between those two, and Cole Hocker just dug in and was able to sprint his way on the final straightaway ahead to an Olympic record in the 1,500 meter, and was able to get the gold medal. So my cheers goes to Cole Hocker. Gold medal winner in the 1,500 meter. So what a performance and great job. Jeez, man.
Perfectly fitting. I think he ran a 3:27 to win that. I like to run, but I assure you I'm nowhere near a 3:27 mile.
No,
I can't even come close to that. I get excited when I hit 8 minutes. I'm like, look at me. Yeah. Meanwhile, he's finished it twice at that point.
My best mile ever was 5:15, and that was in middle school. So
that's nuts. Yeah.
Yeah, so that just goes to show you, folks. But
I like it, Cole Hocker for sure.
That's going to do it here for us, guys, on episode 224 here of the Garage Bears podcast. 224 episodes in, incredible,
Very
right?
Nice, yeah, that is incredible.
And we're not done. Right? We're just going to keep on going and going and going.
That's awesome. Thanks so much for letting me hang out with you tonight, Chad. That was a blast and a lot of fun, kind of digging up some of my old broadcasting memories, getting to hear.
Loved having you, Matt. Loved having you. And that's the only thing left to do is send out our thank yous. First off, a big thank you goes out to the president of hockey operations and general manager of the Columbus Blue Jackets, in Don Waddell. He gave us way more time than he probably should have, but we just are so grateful for the conversation and everything that he talked to us about, and his honesty. It was terrific. Second thank you goes to the OBR. Again, I said it at the beginning of the show. They let us come on here and talk about whatever the hell we want. Even with the OBR being a Browns-specific podcast, or Brown Specific Podcast Network, to be able to come on here and do what we do is a real treat every week, and we just appreciate the OBR so much. And the last thank you goes out to you, the listeners. The comments were active tonight, and we really appreciate it. And we hope you keep with us, man. Again, we're going to keep this train rolling every Tuesday night on the OBR at 9 p.m. The OBR After Hours. It's like we would call it. I like to get a little set the mood a little here, Matt.
I feel like that's an 80s thing, right? Wasn't there a bunch of shows after dark?
The OBR After Dark. But yeah, that's going to do it. Be sure to tune in next week for episode 225. Mike and Joey will be back for that as we're going to continue to bring you more here on the OBR Streaming Network. For Matt Douglas, I'm Chad Meyer. We'll see you next week, everybody. Good night.